Hello and welcome to MYCast, the independent horror podcast based on and around the Mycho Universe. And today I'd like to welcome a very special guest, but I couldn't find one. So instead, here's Miss Kimberly Lasi. How are you doing?
Super offended.
I should tell you that I'd use that every time. And then I explain that to everybody every time that I use it every time. And it's always really awkward. And then, but now we're here and we're in.
I feel like maybe explaining it makes it like more awkward.
Well, but this is it, but then it becomes so awkward that it comes full circle and it's not even awkward at all.
Yeah, and then it's just fine. And you're like, okay.
There we go. Yeah. Well, what it started off that I would just say it to people I was being mean to, like, Derek and Will. And but then Anna was like, you never say that to the girls. And I was like, oh, right. I'm going to double say it to the girls then.
I must always do this now then.
So it's become like a running joke. And I also explained that part of the story every time now as well. That Anna said I was going easy on the girls. So I thought that can't be right. I'm an equal opportunities kind of person, as you well know.
Yeah. Equal opportunities for insults. All good.
So I've got about 5 or 6 questions here, depending on how many you answer before I get to, because like some people I ask the first question and they just answer everything in one big fell swoop and I go, oh, well, what was the point?
And now we're done.
We all might as well go home now. So obviously, we'll start off with who the devil are you?
Oh. Like in a Mycho sense or in a like?
Well, I mean, just in general
sense. So I'm Kimberly. I am an actor. I played Tiffany Harvey in CleaverS, and yeah, that's about it.
I mean, you've done other stuff as well. You're a filmmaker, and
yeah, I've done other stuff, and I've a lot of that I've kind of done since CleaverS really. So like I started like writing and producing my own short films like pretty shortly after we wrapped on CleaverS, and I now have like a comedy sketch comedy YouTube series that my friend and I created, which is all about like a fictional recruitment agency that does interviews over Zoom. Yeah, and so that's like 100% improv. So we just like bring actors in, give them a character, and say like whatever happens and go with it from there. And yeah, that's a lot of fun. And I'm writing my first feature film right now. So
oh wow, yeah, I didn't know that. And I like to think I'm quite up to date with what you're up to, and I
not very well kept secret, but yeah.
Wow. Well, so usually my second question is, and it will be this time, because I'm not going to change it. So like, how did you get into acting? How did what was your journey into that?
So I was like really, really shy when I was a kid, and so my parents put me into acting classes as a like, Kimberly needs to learn to talk to people type of thing. At least I think that was the reason. They will probably not admit that was the reason, but I'm pretty sure it was. So I started doing musical theater when I was like 6 or 7 years old, like quite little. And I did that for years. And then when I was in high school, I started going to like this, sounds ridiculous, like film camp every summer.
That sounds good.
It was really good. It was really cool. It was on, I'm from Canada, so it was in the Gulf Islands in British Columbia.
Yeah.
And I'd go every summer, and you like, basically they just throw a group of teenagers together and they make movies. And so I got really into screen acting at that point. And then I sort of like, I don't know, stopped for a while, decided I needed a real job and that I wasn't allowed to be an actor anymore. And in that time period, I moved to the UK. And then basically, as soon as I was like, legally allowed to start acting again in the UK for immigration purposes, I did. So I just started, like as soon as I could, I started taking screen acting classes again. I started like trying to get work in like short and indie films. And I think I kind of first started getting back into voiceover and then finding like different random short films to be part of, music videos and stuff like that. And then eventually I was led to CleaverS, and which at that point was probably the biggest thing that I had been in, and was only my second feature film.
What a place to start. The only way is up, surely.
Yeah. Not at all.
Well, I mean, that leads me on to my next question then, really, which is, so how did you become involved in CleaverS? I mean, I kind of know, but
yeah,
from your perspective.
I vaguely know. It's actually a little hazy. Not really sure. Yeah, I had like really recently moved to London at that point. So I had been living in the Northwest, and moved to London and was basically like, let's find some acting jobs in near London. And I remember seeing the ad at first, and I remember clicking on it, and I remember looking at it and being like, mostly lead roles available. Probably won't get one of those. Probably don't have time to do that. So I'd like scroll past and not apply for it. And I did that for ages, it felt like. And then it kept kind of coming up. And I just remember that like, I think I applied for like a smaller part in it, and then got an email from you that was like, that's actually already cast, but do you want to try like audition for this instead? And then I self-taped for Tiffany, and then joined the cast.
I think it was a weird one for me because I think you applied for I want to call her Olivia, but that's not her name. It's Chase.
Yes, I also want to call her Olivia.
So yeah, I think you applied for Chase initially. I think what happened is, sort of like, I'd been looking at, and I'm not kidding, like every actor like that possible, like for Tiffany, because I was like, she's so specific. She had to be like slightly older than the two leads, but not any great, like, you know, and there had to like not huge age difference because of the dynamic. Because I think they both were in, like, her and Tanya were both in school at the same time in the script, and I can't call
anyone their right characters' names. I was just like, and Jess.
So I had to find someone that could play that, but at the same time, you know, it wasn't such a drastic kind of. And so, like, honestly, like, I looked at so many people, and also my like casting process is so slow because what I tend to do, I hate wasting people's time, because I hate my own time being wasted. So I find someone that I think will be suitable. I look up like their reels and like their, you know, I look through their CV and all that. Once they've applied, obviously. And then I don't just go around like, oh, who are you? What's your show reel? But, you know, like, so once they've applied, like, you know, I go through the applications and I look and I go, right, this is the someone I think would be good, and I contact them, and then, you know, and see where it goes. And so I'd looked at a couple of people, which had taken me a good couple of months, because I go through it, I'm very thorough, I contact them, I ask them to send a self-tape, and then either it comes back and it's not quite right, so then I've got to start again, or, you know, you don't hear anything, or you know, like, there's a whole load of different reasons why. But I looked at I think 2 or 3 other people, and they just weren't right for the role. And but what on Star Now, I think, was what you
I think so.
do. You can kind of look at people in the right bracket, bracket in terms of what you're looking for. And so you'd come up, and I remember looking at your headshot and go, that's the character. Like, I had a drawing of her. When we were, what you call it, when we were putting the crowdfunder together, because obviously we hadn't cast anybody at the time, so I had like a sketch I'd done of the character, and like the instant I saw your headshot, I was like, that's her, but you hadn't applied for it, so I was like, oh man, like, so obviously one thing I don't like to do is approach actors directly. I think it's just a bit like, it never looks good for for a filmmaker, I don't think, to just come along and go, I'm doing this thing, you know, out of the blue. It's a bit weird. And also, like, I've always found there's a weird, like, power shift when you start approaching actors. Not with everybody, so this is not like a blanket statement, but there have been times in the past where I've thought that actor's perfect for something, but because I've approached them, they feel like completely indispensable. So then, like, especially early on in my career, like, a lot of actors would throw their weight around because they thought I've been picked out of obscure, you know, like, you came to me. And so as a kind of as we were talking about before we started recording, I think it's like a bit of a, you know, like a psychological thing where I'm like, you know, I just, after those experiences, I just try not to do it. Anyway, I'm as always, gone completely off track. But so you get like a timing on the start. So you put them out and you have to choose like an end date.
Yeah.
For them. I mean, you know, you've done castings before.
I've done it now. I get it now.
So you start and then you run your ad for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or whatever. So I tend to run mine for like, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And it was like the last few hours when you don't really get any applications. You get loads in like the first 24 hours, and then you'll maybe get one a day for like the next few weeks. And so every day I was looking and going, I think we'd had someone early on, and I had a look at them. And then when it came to it, I was like, they're not right for the role, you know. And it was like the last like 12 hours or something. You were like the last application in at the last minute, and I was like, oh my god, it's her. Like, so I very calmly thought, okay, well, I'll just message her and see if she, because you'd applied for Chase.
Yeah, I know. I definitely didn't apply for Tiffany right away.
But we'd already cast the role of Chase at that point.
Yeah.
And so I was like, right, let's just be very cool, like, because once you find an actor that's perfect for a character that you've written, it's really, really hard to go with anyone else.
Yeah.
And so, so I just remember emailing you going, okay, like, just be very good. Like, so hi, this role's gone, but we do have another role. And I thought, because the problem with casting sometimes is that people want to play a very specific role, but they're not always interested in anything else. So like, I've had a lot of actors who've applied for what I would consider interesting roles, but they only want to do the specific thing that they saw advertised. So, you know, if it's not like, you know, popular bitch character, or like, which is what they wanted to play, if it's like, you know, bookish nerdy girl or whatever, then they're not very interested in that. And so it was a bit of a kind of like, I remember saying, like, you know, this character's gone, but there is another character. And obviously she's, on the grand scheme of things, much more important to the story. So I had to be very careful about how I played it, because as well, like you say, a lot of actors like feel like they don't have time to do big roles, but they can come do small stuff. Yeah. And so I remember sending you the email and thinking, like, please, like, please be interested in it. Because I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do if she's not. But thank God you were. Like, it's
so funny to like, I just feel like to hear both sides, because I remember getting that email and being like, oh, this is so cool. Okay. But I've just remembered, like, what the other reason that it took me like ages to apply was because I had like just had a really bad experience after applying for an indie film.
Oh wow.
So then I was like, oh, do I still want to do, like, is this still a good idea? Like, maybe I should just like take a step back. And then I was like, no, it's fine. Like, one bad experience is not everyone.
Well, that's good. And I think when you first, because when we first, well, I mean, I'll go into it a bit more, but I think when you first arrived, like, we were all really nervous. I mean, not just about you. I think we hadn't met Olivia, who plays Chase. We hadn't met her before either, or Matt. And I think we'd only met Derek Derek had come the night before.
The night before.
So we'd got a little bit of a chance to kind of chat to him and kind of. So it's a bit nerve-wracking suddenly when a lot of new people turn up all at the same time, and then I think your shoes didn't fit, Oh no, sorry, it was.
Fell apart.
No, that was later on.
Yeah.
It was that Olivia's shoes didn't fit, and so suddenly, all the time I'd kind of planned to like everyone arriving. It's just like to kind of have a chat with people and kind of so that it's not we're straight there and I'm just saying do this, say this, do that. All that time just went out the window because we were like one of our characters doesn't have shoes. So it became a bit of a panic, and it's because like quite often, especially when you're doing horror, you can't say hello actor, please use your own shoes. We will destroy them, as you know.
Thoroughly.
Well, I mean, we'll go into this stuff now, but we can talk about specific moments, but the general time working on the film, what was that like? I mean, again, I was there. Although I mean, I can't speak for you, but I mean, what was it like working on the film for you?
So that I think like the thing that about CleaverS is that it was like everyone really connected like right from the start, and I think that that's actually like quite rare. So it was such a good experience in that sense that everyone it felt like everyone got on right away. Not going to speak for everyone because maybe I totally misinterpreted this, but it felt like everyone got on right away. And I think like for me, like I loved the characters, so it was like a lot of fun to play in general, and like loved working even from like the very first moment, like when I remember standing in like your bathroom doing makeup with Olivia and we were both like, are you nervous? I'm nervous. I'm really nervous. Are you nervous? But it was good because there were all these like bonding moments right away. And one of the things that was really cool for me is like how much of the actual sort of filmmaking process we got to see, and like kind of being part of like creating the like practical effects and things like that, and like getting to understand that, because that's not something I'd ever gotten to actually like see the process happen in before. So that was like really cool, and it was just like it was generally like a really fun experience. It was really hot though.
It was silly, which was really beneficial because obviously for people who don't know, the film's set in the US, but we had to shoot in the UK, obviously, because we're not rich or have any money at all. But we had found like a load of like cool places that looked very Americana, as Derek always calls it. He goes, hey man, that's so Americana. And I go, all right, well that's what I was going for, of course. But we did find some like, some cool kind of like American looking roads and stuff. But the problem with that is that like they look great, but even like in the British weather, they don't look particularly American. You know what I mean? So, but the second the sun came out, and I mean it was insane from day one. This huge kind of like blue sky, and it really just sold the whole thing. But the problem with that was it was also evil, like because it was just. I remember Holly, like within the first couple of hours, she was like it's too hot, like she had to go and we had to go and get some like food, and because we hadn't planned for it to be like to become so treacherous so quickly. I mean, we had like water and stuff,
and Annie was like all over us with the sunblock all the time. She was like, do you need more? And I still got really bad sunburn on the first day.
I remember everyone sitting in the van, like because it was like the only cool place, because you don't think about it. You go, well, we're going out to like a road in the middle of nowhere on like open fields, and you think, oh well, we'll get some shade if it gets too hot. But then you go, where's the shade? Where's the shade? Like it just doesn't exist. So everyone was sitting in the back of the van, like trying to keep cool. And I mean, for all as hot as it was, it really sold the production value we were going for. And I mean, Luna will tell you that that's ultimately much better than filming in like a warehouse in February with her wearing shorts and a tied up checky shirt.
Well, even, like when I came back to do the like final end scene, and we filmed that in like late October, I think. And it was freezing.
Oh yeah, and it was horrible.
It's like the absolute complete opposite of the entire previous.
Yeah, and I mean it's it's really hot. It's just in England in general. We tend to skip spring. We have like Arctic winter, and then we just go, well, do you fancy Mediterranean summer tomorrow? And that's kind of our seasons, really. I think there's like a moment in August where everything's kind of a bit more palatable for everyone. You know, when
Like 2 days.
yeah, when they start doing the pumpkin spice, Starbucks, you go, okay, so we've got about a month before this becomes hellish Arctic winter again. Cool. Like, and that's our seasons there. We have like 6 months of summer, uh, a month of transition, and then 5 months of Arctic winter. And that's how we roll. But yeah, so there's never an optimum time to shoot movies here. We try to like, once it hits November 1st, you go, right, we're done until like March, basically, because we've tried, and it's you end up wearing like 6 coats outside, and like you can't move. You're trying to like show people direction or like work on a prop, and you've got 8 pairs of gloves on before you can, and you're like, you can't. Yeah, your gloves are so thick you can't press like record buttons on the camera and stuff, and you're just like, well, it's not worth it, you know. And so, yeah, temperature's always a thing. But I mean, one thing I remember, you just mentioned it briefly. One of the big things I remember is your shoes falling apart on set, and when you were walking along, like doing this kind of weird, like
at first I couldn't figure out, there was this noise when I was walking and I couldn't figure out what it was, and it was like my shoe felt sort of like one of them, it felt like it was sticking to the floor, but that wasn't what had actually happened. The whole and they were like these massive platforms, and the whole platform had just detached completely from the rest of the shoe.
I think it was because obviously I've explained that we really wanted you for the part, but I think your height was like about 3 inches less than we planned for, because obviously you're thinking about characters and power dynamics. So we wanted Tiffany to be taller than Tanya, so that she kind of had that kind of like superiority over her, if you know what I mean. So even on films about killer clowns running around axing people, you think about things like that, so my only other recourse was to try and find you like the highest possible heels that weren't going to like impede what you were doing. And I think we looked at high heels, but with everything that you had to do in the film, I think it was like a case of I thought that's just gonna make life harder for you. So I'd settled on wedges, but then Anna was like, wedges are like way harder to walk in than high heels. And I was like, no, why would I know that? Like
I don't know, I felt like they fit the character as well.
Yeah.
The shoes suited like what she would wear in that environment. And I think we actually got quite lucky because they didn't fall apart until sort of the only scene I had left we could justify her not wearing shoes in.
Yeah.
So it was really like the last bit in the diner when I tried to walk out of the diner, and my walk, like I can't. I've got an album somewhere of just pictures of your dirty feet, where we were like, take pictures of your dirt, because you didn't wear shoes for the cellar bits. Yeah.
So we were like, take pictures of her dirty feet, so we've got continuity. So yeah. So I was a bit overboard with in the cellar bit. I was like, oh, fake blood. Let's pour that on my feet. This is all a great idea. And then you don't think that like 8 hours, of pure muck later, what that's going to do to you. But it's, it was good fun. I really enjoyed the whole thing. I mean, like you say, there was a good kind of gelling of everyone's personalities, really, which you don't get very often. It's weird. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite film shoots, but that is literally not anyone's fault. It was just really environmentally difficult. Like you say, with the sun, like that was a nightmare. I was like wearing like a weird cowboy hat by the end of it, just to try and stop myself getting sunstroke every day.
That was just a fashion statement.
But I also look pretty good in it, so that helped, But also, I think everything that could go wrong did go wrong in terms of like we were shooting on like a black magic, but it doesn't have like a flipping screen. So anytime the sun came out, the screen would just go like blank. You wouldn't be able to see it. So you're like, you know, I was trying everything to get angles on this screen to try and just make out what we were filming, and it was just and then we had to add like this external monitor to it. But because obviously the sound was going through it at the same time as well, it went from like me being like a one man, you know, cameraman and sound, you know, and all that stuff, to like every time I had to move it, I was like, can someone move the monitor, and can someone move the sound? And before you knew it, like it took 3 people to move the camera every time, and I just hated the whole thing. It forced me to like completely rebuild a new rig with a new camera and everything afterwards, because I hated that element of it so much, and I found it so frustrating. And when you're doing that in the hot sun, you're just like annoyed the whole time, which is frustrating for me, mainly because, like you say, everyone was so good, everyone got along so well, and it was so much fun that like that small technical element was just there every day.
Yeah,
it really spoiled a lot of the experience for me. But when we filmed your final scene in the school, I was on the new rig then, and I mean, for me, that was just such a good day. Like, it was a bit cold, but
we had some
so
other
much fun.
technical difficulties.
Man, I forgot about that. Yeah, with the projector on the wall,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know what happened. I think
It just like wouldn't load, and I just remember we all had our phones out and we're all trying to be like, if I download this on my phone, can I project it? And
I remember what we did in the end was we had like the behind the scenes camera, and we took it up to like the theater where it's like a dark room, put a mobile phone down with this thing playing on YouTube, and then we filmed it on the mobile phone on the camera, and then took the SD card out of that and put it in the thing, and luckily it would read that.
Worked, yeah.
And so we were like, yeah, it was the USB, it wouldn't read the files suddenly for some reason. So we just were like, you know, trying to project this bloody.
I loved doing that scene though. Like everything was fun about it. Like the makeup.
What's really frustrating is I can never tell anyone about it, because it's like the big twist ending. Like I can't share pictures from it or anything, and that's some of the best work in the film, I think. I mean,
I have so many pictures from filming it.
And I mean, as it should be, though. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like I had a very similar problem with the first film, where, like, obviously at the end of the film, when we reveal that Mary Beth is like, you know, she's become like this kind of psychotic little killer clown, and it's like I had this picture of her in her makeup grinning at me that I took on the set, and I was like, this like sums up everything that I love about this film. You know, everything I was trying to get to with the story and everything, and I can't share it. I can't tell anyone because it ruins the movie. And your shot at the end is exactly the same thing. You know, is that we don't want to spoil essentially what we have planned.
The whole, you
know, and it's always. But I mean, so if you listen to this and you haven't seen it, go and watch the film, and you know
what we're talking about,
and then you'll know exactly what we're bloody talking about. And it, like I say, I think probably it's one of the best bits in the film. But I mean, in terms of like makeup and everything, it is just fantastic. And I think it's a real shame that you can't do that without spoiling it. I mean, once we start on part 3, I'll be like, all right, here we go. If we're gonna have a look at all these
spoilers.
like, well, I mean, it worked out really nicely when we started trying to raise money for Cleaver 2, is because I had all these amazing pictures of Holly in her old makeup with the pigtails and this clown face on. And I was like, oh, I've got like perfect promo material that no one's seen now that I can just keep, throwing out there. So we'll do that next time. I mean, let's talk a little bit more about Tiffany before we go. As an actor, was there anything you did to prepare for the role of Tiffany?
I mean, like I have a sort of general process that I use for everything, but one of the things that was a little bit different about Tiffany for me is that the second I read the script, Tiffany reminded me of a specific person who I know very, very well. So, and that's quite unusual for me. Like, I don't usually do that with characters. I don't usually like link them to like real people in my life, but it was like so her that I kind of used that a lot, and especially when I was like kind of like with her voice and that type of stuff as well, was like her whole kind of way of speaking is very much like someone I know, and so that was kind of something that was unique for me. Other than that, like I spent quite a lot of time trying to like get into her head and her relationship with Larry and like why she's there. And so that was like quite a big thing for me. And I think yeah, just like how she feels about being part of that family, because she is like, in a lot of ways I felt like she was kind of the odd one out in many ways, you know, despite I mean she's just misunderstood. I feel like we all think that about our characters. We're like, no, they're really the good guy.
Well, I mean, that's what Matt like. So Matt in the whole film makes some really, really questionable decisions. But every scene he'd come in and go, I've been thinking about my character, and I think this is why he's done it. Like to spin it into why he's such a good guy. I was like, you should use that, Matt. You should use that. You know.
We had some like good discussions about why our characters were really the heroes of this film. Like,
but I mean, especially the girl, because they're like, in my eyes, the four main characters, apart from the killer clowns of the titular killer clowns, of all are because there's there's three stories running through the whole thing, but are Kimberly, Tanya, Howells, and Misty are like my four. It's a really weird mix because, like, also, I guess, kind of spoilers. Like, I knew I was going to come out of this film with like four final girls essentially, which is like the first time that's ever happened to me. Because I knew that they all had an arc that all ended in a way where they all had to kind of get their final girl moment in a way, and then it's how you twist that, like say with Tiffany's story, you know, where like she becomes the final girl in her arc, but then what you do with that, you know, and so like it's like the first time as well that I've ended with like four main characters still intact in some way, you know, without giving away too much, you know, and it's, you know, it's so you know, it's it was interesting in terms of that, I think, as well. Oh,
sorry.
Oh, don't worry about it. Things like that happen all the time. So I guess my last question is, what is next for Kimberly?
Well, I mean, hopefully CleaverS 3. So but yeah, in turn, like right now, as I said, I'm working on like my first feature script right now, with a writing partner who's based in Canada, and it's basically like her, it's kind of autobiographical for her, whereas I'm just script writing girl. So I'm working on that, and I'm hopefully going to be like producing it and like acting in it as well. And yeah, that's like the main stuff that's gone on. I mentioned I've got this comedy series that I'm working on right now. We're starting season 2 soon.
Okay.
So we're just starting casting for it. So earlier when we were talking about like casting on Star Now, I totally know what you mean. And when you see someone and you're like, oh, I hope they apply. Please apply. Please apply.
Like, for the love of God, it's my movie.
But that's like, it's a bit different because we don't really like create the characters for it in advance. So we just like go with who applies and then we create them a character.
But I mean, quite often that's a good way to do something.
Yeah. It's fun. Like if there's not a specific story arc to fit into as well, then it's like, we'll just do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like the main stuff that's happening right now for me. I'm hoping that at some point in the near future, I'll be able to actually go on a trip to Canada and like see my family again. That would be a bonus.
I mean, don't hold your breath though. It's the
Yeah, exactly.
it's kind of the general rule these days.
Yeah.
I mean, this won't go out for a few weeks though, so maybe
Yeah.
in that time you can. So have a safe journey.
I still think that's doubtful.
Yeah, definitely 100% doubtful.
Yeah.
We'll all be. I sometimes I try and make, when I do shows this kind of far in advance. Sometimes I try to like land predictions of what awful thing is going to happen. I mean, who would have guessed that the Isle of Man would have gone to war with the UK over its connection to the European Union?
So shocking. Never could have predicted it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So let's see if that happens. I've got a feeling that like the Isle of Man is just one day going to turn into like a giant kind of like, you know, like living island and just start like come onto the UK and just start like kicking buildings down and stuff. You know, like a sentient being. It's like, you know, like big turtles that have got like an island on their back. Stupid UK.
It sounds like an excellent film.
It will, I'm sure, yeah. It'd be like Cloverfield.
Yeah.
Like the low budget Cloverfield.
Which is obviously based on a true story. So yeah.
Obviously it is. I mean, that it's all based on the same theory, I think. Right, I'll say my P's and my Q's and dot my lowercase J's, and then I'll let you go. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Kimberly, for being here. If you want to catch these, you can go to anchor.fm/Mycho, MYCHO, and these go out I think once or twice a month at the minute. Although that might change once the pandemic ends. I just don't know. You can go, if you want to catch them early, you can go to patreon.com/Mycho, MYCHO. I think you can subscribe to that from about £1.50 a month, or you can do it yearly. And we do these every week-ish. I mean, again, with the pandemic and stuff, sometimes it's a little bit. We also make short films and all sorts of kind of stuff that you can get exclusively there. So all this stuff is created for the Patreon, but then a lot of the podcast stuff goes out about a month later but you can get it early if you go to the Patreon and do that. Also, if you go to myco.co.uk and mycho.co.uk, you can go there and buy movies and watch short films. And we've got T-shirts and VHS tapes and action figures and comic books and other stuff. All loads of things there. There's a lot to keep you busy. So thank you for joining us. We'll catch you guys next time, and goodbye. A big thank you to our Patreon subscribers. You guys make these shows possible, and we couldn't do it without you. Frasier has left the building.